Good morning, everyone. So beautiful to see all the beautiful faces. My name is Sally Jo Gilbert de Vargas, co-minister here with Imam Jamal Rahman at Interfaith Community Sanctuary. All those who are tuning in, I wish you could be here with us in our beautiful building, but you are with us in our beautiful building. If you have a little view of what's going on here, we welcome you and we're happy that you're here. We are very happy this morning to be entering into the month of August with our guest speakers. This tradition of having guest presenters the first Sunday of every month has been going on, I believe, since 1990, which, I don't know, you can do the math. It's been 26, 30, been a long time. And we're very proud and very happy to have Joel and Michelle Levy. I think it's the first time you all have been our guest speakers here. They're not the first time you've ever done a program here. We are very delighted, and we'll be introducing them formally in a little bit. But I started by lighting the World Peace candles up here at the altar and opening the altar door so that the wonderful wisdom of so many different traditions that we have gathered through the holy books and scriptures of so many different religious traditions that we've been able to encounter. We put the books there and pray that the wisdom from those teachings and those different saints and teachers and all the wisdom that was gathered that's been gathered throughout the centuries, we believe is relevant to our world today, and we like to learn from it. We also have our altar for honoring the divine feminine, and we'll be doing a little reading to help us go deeper into what that might mean for each of us. So we are here to begin our service, and where's our little bell? Let me ring the bell. To make it official. And as Jamal says, you're all glued to your seats, unless you need to use the sanctuary of release, which is right straight back there. And we're going to be welcoming you after the service downstairs for a little refreshment then. So let's begin with, I think we're going to begin with a little music. Is that what and I say a little music, but it's really beautiful music and chanting by our own Isla Ross, who will offer us a chant that maybe we can join in with. We'll see.
It's a very simple chant. Ambike Jaganmayi Maha Maya. It's just inviting Divine Mother to heal all of us. Ambike Jaganmayi Maha Maya. 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 Ambike Jaganmayi Ambike Jagannai Mahamaya Ambike Jagannai Mahamaya Ambike Jagannai Ambike Jagannai Ambike Jagannai Ambike Jagannai
Thank you so much, Isla. That was beautiful. Another tradition we have every Sunday morning is to invite in our ancestors, however we may conceive of those relations. Some in the Native American tradition, all of our relations are invited in. And I'm going to ask Rashid Harris to guide us in one way of thinking about having our ancestors in the room with us.
Oh, good morning. So we come to the point where we invite our ancestors. Ancestors, please join us. We welcome you. We remember your services, your sacrifice, what you taught us through hard work and sacrifice, and how your knowledge gave us new insights. We will always honor you and remember you. And I have a quote here from a distinguished individual, Paul Tsongas. I believe he was a senator. And he says about our ancestors, we are a continuum. Just as we reach back to our ancestors for our fundamental values, so we, as guardians of that legacy, must reach ahead to our children and their children. And we do so with a sense of sacredness in that reaching. Blessed be.
Thank you so much, Rashid. And we'll follow that with our honoring of our first peoples of this land. And Steve Kramer is going to offer that honoring of our first people in the land.
Thank you, Sally Jo. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to start off our land acknowledgement with a quote by Black Elk, a leader of the Lakota Sioux, who lived between 1863 and 1950. When I was standing on the highest mountain of them all, and round about beneath me was the whole hoop of the world. And while I stood there, I saw more than I can tell, and I understood more than I saw. For I was seeing in a sacred manner the shapes of all things in the Spirit, and the shape of all things as they must live together like one being. And I saw that the sacred hoop of my people was one of many hoops that made one circle, wide as daylight and as starlight. And in the center grew one mighty flowering tree to shelter all the children of one mother and one father. And I saw that it was holy. I'd like to acknowledge that the land that we are currently, I was going to say standing on or sitting on, is the traditional unceded territory of the Coastal Salish Peoples, in particular the Duwamish or Duwapsh, and also the Shoshone tribe inhabited this Ballard area as well. And there were multiple other tribes in the Coastal Salish speaking peoples who inhabited this area. We would like to honor them as the traditional caregivers of this land who took such wonderful care and are the former, current, and future stewards of this land. And I pray that we may learn how to do true stewardship as they once did. I would also like to acknowledge our sisters and brothers, the trees, the wonderful forests, the lakes and rivers, the ferns, the deer, even the slugs who lend balance to this land. May we learn to live in balance as well. I would also like to acknowledge those black, brown, and red two-leggeds who have worked so hard to build this land, but were so frequently enslaved or imprisoned or not compensated for their hard work, and continue to be harassed or even imprisoned today. May we find justice and freedom and honor them in the way that they all deserve. And may we honor each other as we all deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And finally, our one more tradition we have is to honor the divine feminine. As I mentioned, we have a special altar there set aside, and the divine feminine means something different to each of us, but basically and fundamentally, it's not about feminine and masculine being different genders of different people, but it's about the balance in the world and the balance in the universe being a system that incorporates masculine and feminine energies and masculine and feminine, you might say, qualities. And the way that gets expressed and the way it even gets defined is really something that in this community we feel we are all individually finding out for ourselves and learning about, just as we learn about our own religious beliefs or our own spiritual practices or our own traditions. We learn and grow through our own study and our own meditation and our own contemplation. By the same token, I think that many of us have been, Karen Lindquist, Reverend Karen Lindquist is the one who introduced me to the concept of divine feminine, and she taught many, many years, spent time teaching about what that might mean to her and her colleagues, and helped me, I know personally, to understand what it might mean to myself. So we are going to keep that tradition moving forward. And I've asked George to give us a reading on the divine feminine perspective today, see what he's come up with. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally Jo. And yes, as always, when I get an opportunity to do this, it's such an honor. And you know, we don't let you forget. We not only have the candle lit for the divine feminine, but we have song, we have chants, we have this opportunity And for me, why I find this particularly special, and again, as Sally Jo just did such a good job of introducing this, you know, each of us has a concept of what the divine feminine means to them. And for me, why I find this so important, and I always reiterate this, is this time to contemplate the divine feminine is an opportunity to look for the birth of the divine within. And that is something that I think we can't get enough of. We can't take enough time to look for those opportunities. But not to spend too much time up here, as an offering to the divine feminine today, I found this quote from someone I've quoted before. His name is Llewellyn Vaughan Lee. He's a contemporary Sufi teacher. And this is from an article he wrote called A Lover's Journey, a story of the sacred feminine. And here's what Llewellyn says. Without the feminine, nothing new can be born. This is a simple and essential truth. At present, our world is suffering from a masculine story of separation, that we are separate from each other and separate from the earth. To redeem and heal this, we need to give birth to a story that is based upon oneness, that we are interconnected and interdependent with all of creation, an integral part of the web of life, what the Zen monk Thich Nhat Hanh calls interbeing. It is the feminine that instinctively understands all the interconnections in life, the patterns of relationships that hold life together. She has a natural relationship to life's wholeness. She knows that everything is connected, not with the knowledge that comes from the mind, but from the deep knowing that belongs to life itself, to the cells of her body. She teaches us to wait, to be patient, for the ways of the beloved are not our ways. And she reveals the importance of receptivity. The ultimate feminine mystery that belongs to creation and birth. For a mystic, receptivity is a central practice, what is called divine receptivity, in which we are all inwardly attentive, listening and waiting for the call of our beloved. Our heart becomes a space where we can listen with the ear of the heart, learn to see with the eye of the heart, and finally be a space for the beloved to be born, to be a living presence within us. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much, George. At last, I'm going to call Jamal up here to introduce our beautiful speakers, Michelle and Joel Levy, and give us a little bit of an idea who we're visiting with today.
Thank you so much, Sally Jo. What a joy it is, a genuine joy to introduce these two beautiful friends I've known since, what, 1990s, late 1990s, I think. Since my hair was black. Long time, yes. So these are two not only beautiful people, global, international, spiritual teachers, consultants, advisors. If you check the Google, the internet, there's a relentless abundance of information and praise about them. So I took the liberty of just picking up just small summary of the decades and decades of heartfelt devotion, dedication to the work of peace and justice, and deep understanding. As always, I never bring my reading glasses. I'll use my third eye here. This is what the internet says. Dr. Joel and Michelle Levy are regarded as pioneers in the global mindfulness revolution, the international compassion movement, and work to integrate contemplative science and contemporary mind fitness training in developing and leading organizations in these profound times. They were among the very first people to develop and introduce mindful leadership, collective wisdom, deep resilience, mind fitness, and compassion science-based programs within mainstream medical, higher educational, organizational, and government/military arenas beginning in the late 1970s. But most of all, I really want to say that these are among the two of the most humble, loving human beings I know, and what a joy it is to be not only friends, but family friends over these decades. Thank you so much for gracing our Interfaith Community Sanctuary. Give them a wonderful hand.
Alhamdulillah. Brother Jamal, and greetings to you all. Assalamu alaikum, shalom, aloha. We just came back in from our sanctuary in Hawaii not long ago, so it's really an honor and a joy to be back here at the Interfaith Community Church, which has been just a beacon of such blessings for our community for so many years. So I really celebrate the mischief that you're up to here together. We're grateful to be back here today, and our theme is to explore a special kind of courage. Special kind of courage, the kind of courage that takes to keep our eyes and our hearts and our minds open in the midst of the onslaught of the overwhelming beauty of the world that we live in, and the overwhelming grief and sadness and craziness of what's going on. And I'd ask you, how many of you at times feel apprehensive or concerned or afraid or perhaps terrified by what's going on in our world, in our community, and what has become the new norms? It's a really heartbreaking and gut-wrenching time to live in. The alternative to keeping our eyes and our minds and our hearts open is to default into absencing, into overwhelm, into pulling away, of losing touch with reality, of being disconnected. And when that happens, then we lapse into denial and get lost in delusion, mistaking our misconceptions for the nature of reality. We other people, and when we start to other, then we harm and we destroy and we kill. So it takes courage to show up. And we'd like to really explore the theme of that with you today. And beautifully, this is really aligned with the themes that your community is exploring in past months and coming months of transforming suffering, the energy of the warrior, the principles of active nonviolence. So this is good timing for us to come and explore this together.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Michelle, and really, if it begins, this awakening of courage begins by being willing to face our fears, as Joel was inviting, not to go into denial, or even though it could be so overwhelming. And how do we have the courage to face our fears? That it's kind of a twofold process, this awakening of courage. When we allow ourselves, when we let ourselves to really know our connection to the power that is within us and beyond us, that we are connected to sources of guidance and sources of of the mystery and the beauty that is part of our world as well. When we really cultivate that connection, we receive support spiritually, energetically, that allows us to sit with those troubling feelings rather than try to distract ourselves in various ways. And so what I'd like to invite us to do just as we begin here, getting started, is just let's take a moment to really arrive and open our hearts to welcome whatever is present, whatever feelings, to really connect with this moment as it is, just as it is, without needing to embellish or change or reject anything. Just feeling your feet on the floor, reaching down into the earth, and the breath coming in and flowing that we share with all breathing things, all breathing beings. And just see what emotions, what thoughts or images may be presenting themselves. There's a beautiful iconographic image in the Buddhist tradition of the Buddha before he even awoke to being the Buddha, when he made that fierce determination to go out into the forest and to sit in meditation in Bodh Gaya, what's now called the Bodhi tree, the tree of awakening. He called the earth to witness his being there. He had his right hand in a lot of the paintings or sculptures is like he's reaching down to touch the earth with the right hand, and the left hand is open in a gesture of receptivity, like holding an alms bowl to receive whatever is being offered. And that gesture of balance is a really good one to just affirm, I'm open to receive what this moment is offering me, and I'm connected to this great source of blessings, to the ground of being itself. And that sense of refuge or connection to forces that are supporting us really can help us to move into deepening our courage, to listening for the guidance of how we need to show up or do or say or not do or say in a given circumstance.
So as we sit in this gesture, touching the deepest ground of interbeing, and at the same time maintaining this stance of utter receptivity, welcoming whatever is arising and passing, whatever is shimmering within us, whatever thoughts, whatever feelings, whatever hopes, whatever fears, all of them like snowflakes melting into the warm lake of our receptive awareness. Without rejection, without attachment, just finding the courage to show up moment by moment, breath by breath, wave by wave of life breaking on the shores of our awareness. It's really a beautiful quality of being, a beautiful quality of being to be able to tap into. And to allow us to tap into this in a deeper way, we'd like to just share an image with you. So just envision yourself in the presence of some challenge in your life or something that awakens a sense of concern or apprehension or fear. And then think of someone who's an embodiment of qualities or strengths that you admire that could help you just face this fear, whatever it may be. And envision that you can call that person close to you, close enough that you can actually reach out physically now and hold their hand. Imagine them reaching to you and holding your hand.
And as you breathe, imagine that you can gather some of their wisdom, their love, their strength, their blessings, and take it to heart. And as you exhale, you can emanate your gratitude, the energy of your thanksgiving and blessings back to them. And as you reach to them, envision that they in turn reach out to their mentors and teachers and sources of strength and refuge, who in turn reach out to their mentors and teachers, who in turn reach out to their mentors and teachers, and an infinite extension back through the ancestors and the lineages. And that as you breathe in, you feel and sense these waves of spiritual strength, of blessings, of inspiration flowing to you from this vast cloud of these awakening and beings. And your love and your gratitude streaming back upstream to them all. And as you receive in this way, sense that you can also then emanate and radiate and extend this light, this love, these blessings to those within your sphere of influence. And this flows from your heart to their hearts, and through their hearts to the hearts of everyone who they touch, and through them to the hearts of everyone they touch. And that there's also a subtle reverberation coming back to you of blessing. So that we have this strength, this capacity not to just walk through the valley of the shadow of death by ourselves, shuddering and whimpering and feeling overwhelmed or insufficient or under-resourced, but we can actually reach out into this vastness and draw strength, draw inspiration, tap into guidance. And in this way, we can also realize we can tap into this larger field of being through just meditating on being open to what am I grateful for, taking those gifts to heart and emanating our blessings back to whoever, whatever we're grateful for, and through them into the field of interbeing that brings those gifts into our lives.
There's a wonderful archetype, we can say, or inspirational model in the Buddhist tradition, but it's not restricted to the Buddhist path. This archetype of the bodhisattva, of being on the path of awakening to their true nature, to see clearly the nature of reality and each other, not only for their own benefit, but in order to be of the highest possible service, in order to cultivate and awaken their highest potentials, to be of the greatest benefit, and help others to do the same, to inspire and guide others to awaken to their true nature and highest potentials as well. And this bodhisattva could be someone working at the food bank. Incognito. You don't know who the bodhisattva is. Bags your groceries at PCC, or beings that are there to help, that are responsive to the needs, even the suffering of others. Jesus was a great bodhisattva, and many different traditions have those examples. I think my mic. It's on. Okay, great. I wanted to share with you a beautiful quote from the previous Dalai Lama, the 13th Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama is currently that we, if we've had the blessing to hear any teachings or see him, is the 14th in this line of ancestors of this particular lineage of teacher. And the 13th Dalai Lama foresaw or felt the big change that was coming to Tibet. It was just in the early stages of China coming to occupy, but it hadn't fully happened yet, but he could see these signs, and he was tapping into the the warrior monk, the spiritual warrior, which is actually, Bodhisattva is a code name for an awakening spiritual warrior. One who finds that courage to do what it takes to show up, to help, to be of service. And the 13th Dalai Lama really was embodying that quality of warrior monk. And he wrote this about the Bodhisattva, which I really appreciate this quote. He said, "The Bodhisattva is like the mightiest of warriors, but his enemies are not common foes of flesh and bone. Her fight is with the inner delusions, the afflictions of self-cherishing and ego-grasping, those most terrible of demons that catch living beings in the snares of confusion and cause them forever to wander in pain, frustration, and sorrow. His mission is to harm ignorance and delusion, never living beings. These she looks upon with kindness, patience, and empathy, cherishing them like a mother cherishes her only child. He is the real hero, calmly facing any hardship in order to bring peace, happiness, and liberation to the world." And I alternated those pronouns intentionally because Bodhisattva, of course, appears in both the feminine and the masculine manifestations. So we'd like to share with you an extraordinary opportunity we had to step into this challenge of courage and of inspiring others to do the same.
There's a quote attributed to Lao Tzu where he says, "A person of outer courage dares to die. A person of inner courage dares to live." And we were invited. I was working at Group Health before it became Kaiser, running the stress and biofeedback program and the pain clinic there. I get a call one day from a former student in an Antioch University graduate program on studies in consciousness, and Bud Cook, who was a martial artist, a peak performance trainer, really, really beautiful being embodying the warrior spirit, Hawaiian brother. And my receptionist catches me between patients one day and says, "There's an urgent call from Bud Cook. Can you take it?" And I pick up the phone. And Bud's on the line. He says, "Hey, Wiz," because he used to call me Wizard. "Hey, Wiz, how'd you like to design the ultimate warrior training program for the U.S. Army Special Forces?" There was a long pause. And Bud goes on to describe a cascade of circumstances, how he had just come back from a meeting, 1st Earth Battalion and the Delta Task Force, a lot of Pentagon people, a lot of people from the military-industrial exploring ways to ennoble and re-envision what the U.S. military might be and develop a vision for the military in the year 2000. So this was a while back. It was after the cover-up of the My Lai massacre in Southeast Asia. It was a time where the system was clearly broken. There was this vision of the 1st Earth Battalion, the natural guard, to protect and care for the earth, to go into places of conflict like Gaza and Israel and say, "Stop. Let's figure this out together," rather than just keep escalating. It was a time when there was a lot of psychic research behind the Iron Curtain and a huge race between the US, USSR, and China to develop psychic capabilities that could be used in gathering reconnaissance and operations in various kinds of ways. It was a really juicy, crazy, open time. And the military leaders that approached Bud, basically said, we need to change the training paradigm. We don't know what to do. We admire you and the Buddha spiritual warrior archetype that you embody. Could you help us? And Bud said, oh, and they had just released studies that said that more than twice as many men and women were committing suicide when they came back from being deployed than dying in combat. The statistics now are anywhere from 2 to 20 times more people dying when they come back because the moral injuries run so deep. So the portal opened for us to design the Jedi Warrior Program, the Ultimate Warrior Program for 25 U.S. Army Green Berets, which was 3 years of research, 6 months on base, had these guys pretty much full-time and immersive training. Kind of a mind-blowing program for a couple of peaceniks like us. And we'd just like to offer a couple glimpses from that around this theme of courage. Yeah.
So again, I'd like to invite you to pause for a moment and just to consider if you had the opportunity to train some elite troops whom could be in the position to either start or stop the next world war, what would you think is important to teach them? What would be important for them to learn? Just take a moment and consider what would you want to teach them? And if anyone would care to share, it'd be nice to have a little sampling from this group. Yes. Listening and tone. Good. Thank you. Yes. Unconditional forgiveness. Great. Another one? Yes, Steve. Great, you are all hired on the next expedition. It's you're so right on to the core curriculum that we had there. I was going to say good fortune, but the challenge to really design and deliver. Got me? Yes, yes. So when we got that invitation, we thought, well, this could be a powerful opportunity to teach people some things they may not have learned before or had the opportunity to learn. It could also be, is this good karma? Is this bad karma? We were really wondering whether to accept it. And we decided to check with a number of our beloved mentors and teachers. And I'd just like to share a couple of the advice that we got. But I want to say that everyone, without exception, who we called and went to see, all said, green light, go ahead. Definitely take this on. If you can make a difference, it would be worth trying. And so the first person we called was Venerable Tibetan elder, teacher Kalu Rinpoche. Some of you may have had the fortune to meet him or hear of him. And he had just been in Seattle, was in Portland, and we said, let's call Rinpoche and tell him and see. Joel and I actually met studying with Kalu Rinpoche, and he was a very close teacher and mentor for us. And so we called, and we got his translator, Tricky, who said, oh, let me go ask Rinpoche this right away. And he came back and said, yep. And we were kind of hovering. Well, it depends on what Kalu Rinpoche says. We hadn't accepted it yet. And he came back and he said, oh, Rinpoche thinks this is a great idea. This is a great opportunity. If you have the chance to work with people who may lack, who have an enormous amount of power and influence, but who may lack the wisdom and compassion to use that power wisely, and you can do anything to show them some other options or help them see things differently, by all means, he didn't say this is your bodhisattva opportunity, but that was the feeling. And then another one of our teachers, also Tibetan teacher, who was in California, as I remember it. But anyway, here in the States, and Dzong Rinpoche, who had been the abbot of the largest monastic university in Tibet, Ganden Monastery, and also a very close teacher of ours. We asked him, and again, it came through translation. The translator said, no, we asked him the question that I just asked you. What's most important? If we take this assignment, what's the most important thing to make sure that we impart or teach them? And the word that came back through the translator was, Rinpoche says, teach them courage. You need to teach them courage. And Joel and I are looking at each other like, Joel and Michelle are going to teach the Green Berets courage, right? And we found, and so that was like a koan for us, this question rolling through the whole program. You know, what did he mean? What did he mean? How can we teach them courage? And we kept learning different levels, kind of that Lao Tzu quote. They had the outer courage, jumping halo through from their planes or choppers and not opening their chutes till they're almost at the ground, you know, and all that kind of outer courage. But the inner courage to really show up for their fears, to be in touch with the deepest parts of themselves, they hadn't cultivated that or even been invited and introduced to do that. It was just plunge ahead, you know. That reactivity was a major part of the training, that resilience. So when Rinpoche said teach them courage, we found out through the program as we were talking with other Tibetan translators, that word, Ningtop in Tibetan, which means literally heart power. And the translator there that day could as well have translated it as teach them forgiveness, teach them patience, teach them compassion. So, you know, that as we kept learning different nuances of what this heart power word really meant, and as we were experiencing the training through their own fears and vulnerabilities, we began to understand a little bit more of what the connection to courage that those different qualities had. And Joel's going to describe that training a little more.
So in 6 months, full-time, 25 people, really immersive. We worked with their families and kids. We did Aikido training. We had a lab with $500,000 worth of neurofeedback and biofeedback equipment to teach them to be aware of the subtle changes in their bodies and change them with their awareness. But the most courage-challenging aspect of the 6 months was a month-long silent meditation retreat called the Encampment. And before that, many of the guys were coming to us really expressing their terror at the idea of having to sit quietly with their own mind for a month. It was challenging and it was fruitful. I'd just like to offer 2 glimpses from that retreat. After about 3 weeks, have you ever had popcorn and wondered if it was ever going to pop, you know? About 2.5, 3 weeks into the retreat, we're kind of going, there's a few colonels popping, but you know, a few sergeants popping, a few corporals popping, but then they started to really drop in, and about 2.5 weeks into the encampment, we gave a Dharma talk one night on interbeing, interdependence, how we breathe with all beings who've ever breathed, and with all the bushes and the trees and the creatures, and it's all connected, and we're all part of the one body of life, like it says in Corinthians and Shantideva, and they were dropped in enough that they could taste it. And at the end of that talk, one of the guys raised his hand, and you could sort of see his mind in fibrillation. And he says, but Joel, if what you're saying is really true, how could we ever kill anybody? which led to about 2.5 or 3 hours of really deep reflection in this little zendo in a Boy Scout camp in New Hampshire. So that was one moment of thank goodness for the power of these practices and teachings. Later on, were teachings and the practices of around heart power, like Tonglen. And, just appreciate, we all have these devices. They're kind of cute. They have a lot of interesting features. But if they're not logged on to the cloud, the web, they're kind of useless. And in the same way, in that meditation we did earlier of reaching out to those that are reaching out, and just expand your field of resource to this vaster network where we can receive and gather strength and resources, and we can emanate and radiate those. Imagine being on a mission feeling like you were just you out there by yourself versus that there were reinforcements and vast reserves at hand that you could draw from. The inverse side of this is a practice that's really at the heart and the core of the Bodhisattva warrior tradition, and that's the practice of Tonglen, which many of you are probably familiar with. And that's the practice of, just join me in this for a moment. We'll just glimpse this, of just resting in open, clear, loving awareness and beholding whatever is shimmering within us, the joys and the sorrows, the pleasure and the pain. And to be able to, as we breathe, tractor beam into our heart of hearts, any of the sorrow, the suffering, the grief, the pain, to melt into our heart of hearts and open our heart to just an emanation and radiance of loving kindness and compassion that flows back to where the sorrow or the suffering comes from. And as we tune into our own aching joints or our own broken heart, our own sorrows or fears, then we may think of someone else who has a similar ache or pain or sorrow or vulnerability. And as we breathe, we might also gather their sorrow or suffering or pain or the latency for that into our heart of hearts, where those energies of suffering are dissolved and resolved completely. And we open our hearts to emanate the energy of healing and compassion back to ourselves and back to all the other myselves in the larger body of life. So imagine, being able to drop deeper and deeper and deeper into this meditation of love on every breath. Welcoming and embracing whatever fears, whatever pains, whatever sorrows may arise, and metabolizing them into opening our hearts to even wider and wider circles of loving kindness and compassion that flow to ourselves and anyone else in need of that healing or that love. So these are the kinds of practices that we had the privilege to introduce to people who likely wouldn't have encountered them elsewhere. And I think where all this really kind of sums up and has traction is it takes courage to be awake. It takes courage to read the news or listen to the news or see what's going on in the streets around us. And if we can find that courage, then it's more likely that we'll be present, that we'll be awake, that we'll be aware, that we'll be mindful. And to the degree that we're able to be present, then it's more likely we're going to be more empathically attuned to what's going on. If someone looks hungry, we'll give them some food in our pack. If they look lonely, maybe we'll smile or stop and talk with them. There's out of courage comes presence, comes empathic attunement, comes compassionate responsiveness, selfless compassionate responsiveness. If there's a need, there's a response that comes from the heart. And through that compassionate responsiveness, we see that the world starts to sparkle more brightly, that we're seeing more positive outcomes and impacts. And that gives us more confidence and more faith, which gives us more courage, that gives gives us the capacity to show up more wholeheartedly and be more empathically attuned and compassionate. So just to offer that as a map of the territory.
Thank you for your attentive listening. I really feel all the hearts connecting here, and just invite us again to pause for another moment and just connect with yourself and reflect. And maybe in a word or a phrase, just to reflect on what has awakened within you during this short, brief time of sharing our presentation here. Just what is present, what is awake within you right now, or awakening. And maybe you could hear again from a few people. That would be great. Anyone would like to share a word or a phrase? Yes, thank Maggie.
Well, I'm just thinking about the connection between courage and generosity, and sort of recognizing my own fear around personal resources and, you know, a desire to have faith that if I'm more generous, I'll be fine. So that's just what's happening, thinking about.
I just got to say, in person is so much better than Sunday morning Zoom. I mean, we've been doing that for 5 years, and it's all great, but there's no words, but, you know, it's really amazing. Thank you.
First of all, I'm really impressed with that whole willingness to take on a challenge like that. I've been in the military. I know some of the issues that you must have fought with head on. But anyway, the thing that really struck me today was the whole idea of bodhisattva and how we each can be potentially bodhisattvas. And it was interesting in the description of bodhisattva, you were talking about the highest possible service. But I started to go the other direction, to the minimal possible service, you know, and the point that you were mentioning a second ago is the courage to deal with the people who make us uncomfortable, the people on the streets, the people who are disenfranchised. And it really looms large in my heart these days because I hear a lot about it. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of compassion fatigue. There's a lot of very negative, stereotypical conceptions of things. But some of the people that I work with, one of the most poignant statements that was made it's been made several times since, but the first time I heard it was sitting down with someone who was chronically homeless, been homeless for a long time. And when I sat down and spoke with her for a while, the first thing she said is, she looked at me with this kind of disbelief and said, "You're talking to me. To most people, I'm invisible." And so just to the point you made, just recognizing the humanity of anyone, no matter what their condition, taking the time to smile. You know, sometimes it could be confrontational, but you use your own judgment. But when possible, but you can always in your heart recognize the commonality of being. You can recognize their humanness. And so, to me, that's the kind of the bodhisattva path. You know, making baby steps, work your way up to the highest possible good. But it doesn't take a whole lot to start that courageous path.
fun to pop in because it so relates to what you just said. Is it Maggie? Maggie, about generosity. And there's a classic guide in the Buddhist Bodhisattva tradition called The Guide to the Bodhisattva Way of Life. And part of, in that guide is they speak of 4 kinds of generosity. The first path within, on this awakening Bodhisattva warrior spirit path is giving. It is generosity. It's the first paramita, transcendent virtue that's listed, is giving. And then it talks about 4 kinds of giving. It's, yes, material goods when you can help, medicine, but friendliness, a smile, giving protection, giving acts of kindness can be material, but often exactly like you were just speaking about, sitting down to talk with someone is lonely or having a hard time. That's huge. It's a huge generosity. So it isn't only what we offer in the Dana basket, although that's helpful, but it's not limited. So just to expand the frame on generosity, it's, food, clothing, shelter, financial help, friendship, a smile, can go a really long way. And, thank you, and giving the Dharma, giving spiritual teachings, giving liberating teachings, sharing a perspective that someone might not have had that can be an awakening gift to that person. It's a very high kind of generosity. And there was someone in the back. Let's just get.
Thank you very much. It's been reflected already, though as a little boy, I had a belief that I wasn't enough. And I even wrote it down on the old telephone book, not enough, why bother? And I'm enough, you're enough, we're all enough. It's still a thing I contend with at 71. Here now with you, I'm filled with peace, a peace beyond all understanding. And in a broader note, it's always been my belief that before culture, before ethnicity, before gender, before social status, we're all the same. I'm the same. We're all the same. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jamal.
Well, good. This is kind of a nice segue into if you have any questions or any other comments, maybe related to what you've heard or what you haven't heard or what you're wondering about. This is a chance to speak up if you feel comfortable asking or just mentioning what's in your mind. Well, okay, if you have any.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing to the Tonglen. Some people may have glimpsed Tonglen the first time you were with a dying friend or a loved one, and or nursing a baby, or caring for someone who is vulnerable. And it's just that natural impulse of wanting to gather all their sorrow and pain and fear and give them all your strength, okay? It's so organic. It's said in the classic teachings that from the moment that we glimpse that that's possible, and we cultivate that capacity, and we grow in our confidence and our skill and our capacity to really be an entropy transformer, gathering the sorrows and pains within and around us and metabolizing that into radiant compassion. Our capacity grows and grows and grows and grows, maybe over infinite lifetimes, they say, until when the last cataract of delusion melts and we awaken fully, A description of a fully awakened being is that their mode of existence is simply Tonglen, simply being in the world in a way that is sensitive to and responsive to anything that's out of alignment, and to harmonize and balance that, heal that. So I just wanted to make that one point. I find that just stunningly profound.
So Tong, Len are two Tibetan words that mean sending and taking, taking, transforming. It's not that we're taking that suffering on as a martyr, we're somaticizing it, we're not adding it to suffering. It's like fuel for the fire of compassion or the fire of love. We take it in, we're not taking it on. A lot of times that gets mistranslated. So Tonglen, we're sending our love, our compassion, our wish for their well-being or our own well-being, because you can do Tonglen with yourself, of course. And we're taking that contraction, that tension, whatever there might be, and allowing it, like turning on a light switch in a dark room, allowing that darkness to be transformed through the practice.
That raises a question for me. I'm wondering how Tan Len practice relates to something that I've learned from our teacher, Imam Jamal, self-compassion. So then I thought about the advice you got from your teacher, teach courage. Is that what he taught? Teach courage. And so I'm wondering, is it possible to have Tonlen and have courage to have Tonlen for ourselves when we're suffering?
Yeah, we generally recommend start with yourself. Yeah, just sit in the field of your own awareness and feel whatever the burn or the tingle or the disquietude may be, and work with that. Maybe it's a fear, maybe it's a grief, a sadness, or a aching joint. And as you breathe that in and send healing energy and compassion to that, then it's not unlikely at some point, maybe that session or maybe in days of practice to come, as you've been practicing that kind of self-compassion, self-healing, you might think of a friend who has aching joints or a toothache or grief or some vulnerability. And the heart may just naturally blossom to include them, so you don't have to push it. You don't have to go looking for trouble. But start with what's really personal within yourself, and then just let that open your heart to the many different harmonics of that empathic resonance that lead the heart to open to compassionate responsiveness. So it's very organic. It's beautiful. And we have an email list up here if anyone wants to give us your email. We'll follow up and we can send you some links and some videos on Tonglen and some of these other practices, the receiving and radiating practice as well. So,
just wanted to say, it doesn't take any extra breath. If I'm working with my own, physical or emotional pain, whatever the sorrow is, and then I think of, Sally Jo may also have that fear or that apprehension. I'll just, include her in this practice, and it's the same breath. You're just expanding the radius of your compassion. But it is really good to start with what you're actually feeling directly, so it's not just hypothetical or abstract. I know what that tension feels like. So, it helps me to be more empathic with what you may be feeling as well.
I think it's a very important question that soldier asked about how to, how do I deal with killing someone? And it's most of it, we never face that, but if you're in the military, you're going to be facing that. So, and we've had some discussions about this we had a peace activist here about a year ago or something, and he said he would never be violent or anything. I said, well, what about in an instance where someone's being attacked, physically attacked? Would you tell them to not respond? Or, isn't it the energy and the awareness of the person being attacked to decide what they want to do, whether or not, they're going to fight back or anything? So it's a big issue, and I just wondered what the outcome of that conversation was.
The outcome of that particular conversation was that they had stopped to think about it, and in follow-up encounters with these guys over the years, I think they were more likely to have been less reactive and less likely to suffer the kind of moral injury that comes when you cross lines that will plague you for the rest of your life. To make wiser choices. I don't remember whether we heard the Dalai Lama say this or whether I read it someplace, but Michelle remembers hearing it. We were with Dalai Lama one of the many times we were with His Holiness, and somebody said, but somebody comes in here with a gun and threatens us all, what should we do? And he said something like, shoot him in the leg and take his gun away. It's just like, take care of it, but be as kind as you can, and I remember General Kuno, we wrote about this program in this new book that we've got copies of here today, Manual for the Awakening Warrior, about our program. But we tell the story of Kuno, who was a friend, who was the general of the Tibetan army, the resistance army, and they were just so overstretched. And I remember talking with Geshe Sopa, who was an incredible Tibetan teacher at one point, and he really lamented that the Tibetans didn't have a stronger military force to protect the wisdom traditions of Tibet from the just overwhelming inundation of the Chinese invasion. So, these are really deep and difficult questions. Yes, again and again, but whenever possible, be as kind as we can, and it's always possible to lean towards kindness rather than harmful reactivity. That's the piece.
In order to participate in our program, which they had been volunteered for, although we asked for volunteers, they were all voluntold, so to speak. And for the opportunity, the Army said that they needed to stay, I don't know, an extra year or two beyond what their, in the military, beyond what their commitment, their contract had been. But a number of them did leave because after they fulfilled that time, because their horizons had been broadened to other options of ways they could serve and be of benefit.
Well, congratulations. You created quite a perturbation in that situation. And I have to think that this tremendous ripple you created, it sounds like you did hear back or meet up and maybe went through lessons learned or discussions on how their feelings had changed. Obviously, some of them left, but some of them stayed too. And I have to wonder if maybe you gave them more balance by what you shared with them and they internalized. All right. I did read that story about psychic, and I know they looked in it, and I think my understanding was that it wasn't 100%, and that's why they sort of turned their backs on it. At least that's my understanding.
Yeah, Black Hawk Down story. One of our guys was killed in the Black Hawk Down Battle Mogadishu incident. One lost his leg when a rocket-propelled grenade came up through the bottom of of his helicopter severed his leg and the helicopter crashed. But we were in touch with Brad Howling, who's in the book. He actually edited that part of the book for us. And we had reached out to him, and he said, I'm so grateful to be in touch with you. He said, you know, when my leg was blown off and the chopper crashed and I'm sitting there bleeding out, what I had learned from you allowed me to maintain consciousness and have enough presence of mind to find something to make a tourniquet and stop the bleeding. And if it wasn't for the kind of self-regulation skills that I'd learned, I would have died that day. And so I had actually found him on LinkedIn because I read it was his 61st birthday, and that day he ran 6.1 miles on his prosthetic leg to honor the 17 other soldiers who had died that day. And he said, next year I'm going to run 6.2 miles, and he's been doing that for 17 years on a false leg. And he said, it's getting harder because I'm getting heavier and older. But, you know, a lot of compassion that awoke. Yeah, my heart really reaches out to these guys. Colonel Getty, who oversaw the program, took the teachings then on to the Army War College and then into running special operations in Europe during the time that the Berlin Wall came down. And he had a special unit with a bunch of our guys in cool clothes and mustaches speaking German in East Berlin, kind of working behind the scenes there. So in some way, in terms of ripples, maybe there was some influence in that. I don't know. That hasn't been completely validated, but I think in ripples of interbeing, maybe so.
Say that, bringing up Colonel Getty, who was, I believe, definitely on the Bodhisattva path, but you wouldn't know it from any outer, you know, trappings or uniforms, but his kindness and his compassion reached out beyond the people that he was responsible for to their families. You know, we found out after different ways that he had checked out the equipment, the biofeedback equipment, that he wasn't part of the program because he was overseeing it, but he was really interested in learning anything that could be of benefit, and taught my commissar's wife, helped her avoid surgery for Raynaud's, helped her learn how to warm her hands. And he was doing all these things that nobody ever would have known about, other than that she came up to us at a Christmas party to thank us profusely, and we're like, you're welcome, what did we do? And then it turned out it was Colonel Getty, you know, quietly doing what he could to help wherever. So when we asked him when he retired, and by the way, we wrote this book, it came into being because he asked us. And many of the soldiers also said, please tell the story. We want, and Colonel Getty specifically, please, we want you to tell the story from your perspective, because you've been with it from the beginning through the whole program. And so we kind of felt we had a mandate to share this really extraordinary story. And when he was retiring, Joel and I asked him, so Colonel Getty, Ken, we used to call him Ken, what are you, from all your years of service, what do you feel best about? What are you most grateful for, or happiest about having, you know, contributed or supported? And he, without a blink, he said, Michelle, what I'm most grateful for are all of the covert humanitarian operations we were able to run that nobody ever knows about, where we were able to get food, supplies, you know, whatever. He was, that's what came up for him. The things that, the humanitarian work that we did, you know, we're known for the, you know, special forces, the aspect of the outside, but this special kind of courage to go beyond, to think for themselves and see what was really needed and how they could help. That was really moving for both of us. It's a lot more than meets the eye, yeah.
maybe we'll have to bring this to an end soon, and we'll have our closing.
Yeah, I am. I'm touched that our military has gotten to this place, because I've read a book by someone who is a psychologist in the Army, and how during the Vietnam War, soldiers came back and they had been shooting over the heads of people because they were not capable. And the Army went and trained that humanity out of people. They taught young men how to see an enemy, an evil person. And the fact that humanity has gotten to the point that they will take their military and teach them compassion is just hope for our planet. It's to teach people to be grounded enough and look at, it's not a human attacking me, but a human's delusions. It is a delusion attacking me, and I need to fight the delusion and not a human being.
Yeah. Michelle's saying right now the command climate, as our friends in the military would say, is not very receptive to this kind of work. But to me, to us in writing this book, this was our COVID project, and it was so clear writing this during COVID that people need more of these kinds of skills. Our lives in survival and the wisdom we bring to life and the compassion we bring to life really depends on knowing how to navigate in these terrifying times. But to us, the main place to deploy this kind of training at this time is for youth. Imagine young Jedi warrior training programs in junior high schools and high schools or college, and just helping young people grow up with really strong confidence and skill and compassion in these kinds of ways. So for us, that's kind of like the cherry on top of what the message of this book is really all about.
Just on that note of Jedi warrior training, that was the name that the soldiers gave to the program. We didn't describe it that way in the proposal, but that's what they felt they were learning, and it was ennobling. There was an aspect, because they had the basic soldier skills. It was the inner work that had no training, and yet they were being asked to face this unreasonable kinds of stressful situations. And so anyway, that was their term. But when we were visiting, working in Thailand and teaching in Thailand at one point, we learned that, I think it's really interesting, that George Lucas got the name for a Jedi. A Jedi is a Thai word for the stupa, the temple that you see all over Thailand and most Buddhist countries, with those spires that go up. And it's a symbol of the enlightened mind, a symbol of awakening. And so he did this very skillful little code thing calling the Jedi warriors, but it's really about awakening warriors that are awakening to a deeper level of who and how we really are together. Yeah. So we're just going to move into closing with the dedication.
Yeah, we'll stick around. We have books available, mailing list if you'd like some cliff notes from what we talked about today. The Warrior book is 30, I think, and the Living in Balance book is 20. We have some change, and we have Venmo and PayPal options on that. And since there's been multiple editions of various books, it's something like 6 or 8 books that we've written. Yeah. So just to stay true to spirit here, just pause for a moment if you like, look into your heart or touch your heart. And just feel what's aglow and aflow within you, any positive energy or qualities of being that have awakened within you through the depth of what we've shared together during this precious and holy time. And imagine just breathing all the goodness and the light that you find here into your heart, and letting that emanate and bathing yourself in that at every level and dimension of your being. That you'll carry this with you forevermore to light your way. And imagine this goodness and this light overflowing from your heart to everyone who's been part of this experience today and who may tune into the posting of this online. And flowing from our hearts into the hearts of all beings we share our hearts with in the larger body of life. Just letting this goodness be shared and dedicated, that may all beings awaken to their true nature and highest potentials. May all beings find the peace in the midst of turbulence, and the clarity in the midst of confusion, and the loving kindness and compassion in the midst of fear. Yeah. May these ripples extend infinitely to all beings, in all worlds, in all times.
This chant is in the language of Aramaic, and there are two words, Inanna, I am, Rahma, unconditional love, mercy. A little soundtrack for the previous meditation. Inanna Rahma, 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 Inanna
Thank you so much. Beautiful, beautiful presence here today. This is the time in our service where we ask each of us what sort of giving we might be able to produce for the community in terms of our economic ability to give a little for the upkeep of the beautiful historic building in which we gather and all the programs that we do here. I know the people online are able to give through our website and through the donate button on the website or send checks in the mail. Pardon me? Yes, yeah, in your program, there's a QR code where you can scan the code and get right to the website either via PayPal or via Venmo. You can get us connected there, and we appreciate any way that you're able to give that. And we also know that so many people give of their time. Besides their treasure, we give of our time to help the programs run smoothly here, and we deeply appreciate how valuable that time is to each of us, and how by sharing our time together we generate more for everybody. So we thank you all for that, whatever is a possibility for you. We also have many upcoming gatherings in our community from day to day, evening to evening, week to week. After this service, and very soon after this service, we will be having our monthly guiding council meeting. All are welcome to participate in the everyday running of the community and how the decisions that need to be made in order to help us keep this community vital and alive and available to everybody. So that will be happening after the service today. We also have programs each evening in the week and each often on the weekends as well, special programs. Keep in touch with our announcements, our Monday announcement that goes out every Monday telling you exactly which programs are happening which days of that week, whether they're in person here in the sanctuary, whether they're on Zoom, or whether they're hybrid, or whether they're sometimes even in other locations. So you can keep track of that by going to our website and signing up to get that Monday announcement. And of course, if you're a member, you get other weekly announcements every week as well. And we welcome you to check out our website, because we have one dear member of our church, Chiaki Weatherford, who most of you met last week, who works very hard to keep that website up to date and accurate and have all the information that we need to keep our community together from all over the country and even in other parts of the world. So we appreciate that so much. So if anyone has a special gathering coming up that I maybe should mention, this would be the time to tell me. I don't see that for now. And I hope that we will then be together soon and not just think of this as an every week, every Sunday morning event, although it is a Sunday morning event. And I do want to mention that next Sunday morning we will be having our universal worship, where we put we construct our altar in the middle of the room, and we put upon that altar the offerings from 8 of the different spiritual traditions that we have gathered together on the theme for the month, which we've been exploring. And you can see inside of your program how the themes have changed, and some have been deepened as we go through this wonderful teaching of Thich Nhat Hanh and the Buddhist tradition and the engaged Buddhism. So we'll be using for the universal worship readings on the principle of active nonviolence, and hearing from other spiritual traditions about how that is reflected in their various traditions. That will be offered next week with Rich Ater and Joey Klein and myself doing that service. So every Sunday, something new for every person who attends, and hopefully enrich our work together and our time together. So we say goodbye to folks online. We'll encourage them to come back next week. And remember, these recordings are recorded and they're put up shortly after their service, and anybody can go and hear them later. So if you do know of someone that you wish could hear this, they could go onto our YouTube channel, which is totally free, Interfaith Community Sanctuary on the YouTube channel, and you can find all the different services. We've been recording ever since we started recording services during COVID time. So those don't go away, and they're there listed in chronological order. So welcome to use that and advise others to use it. And then we'll take just a few minutes here